Have you ever watched a kid completely melt down and tear up a perfectly good homework assignment just because of one tiny, barely noticeable mistake? Well, hello everyone and welcome to this explainer. We are jumping right into a really fantastic workbook from Playprint Pals called the Anti Perfectionism Protocol. If you are a parent, a teacher, or honestly just anyone helping kids navigate the super high pressure maze of modern education, you are totally in the right place today. Think of me as your wise, kind friend who has been right where you are in the parenting trenches. We're going to focus on practical, zero-guilt tools to help the kids in our lives build a much healthier relationship with effort, and yes, even with failure. So let's get right into it. So what does perfectionism actually look like? We need to kick things off by challenging a really common assumption here. When we hear the word perfectionist, our brains almost automatically picture a child who is just a natural high achiever. We picture the straight A student, the kid with the perfectly color-coded binder, the one who literally never seems to struggle. But actually, scratch that. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And honestly, it's often a complete mirage. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll cover the perfectionism illusion, the link to procrastination, the cost of outcome praise, the anti-perfectionism protocol, exactly how to praise process, and when to seek support. Starting with Section 1, the perfectionism illusion. Listen, if you've been sitting there feeling incredibly frustrated because your seemingly high-achieving child is constantly having meltdowns at the kitchen table, I want to offer you some immediate empathy right now. You are absolutely not alone, and this is not your fault. From the outside looking in, we usually just see this polished illusion, right? High grades, neat work, constant success. But the inside reality, what is actually happening in their minds and at that homework desk, is a whole different ballgame. It looks like tearing up a piece of paper because a single letter was drawn slightly weird. It looks like staring blankly at a screen, completely frozen with anxiety, or begging to redo a project that is already finished and perfectly fine. Real perfectionism isn't about thriving. It's a profound, paralyzing fear of making a mistake. Let's move to Section 2, the link to procrastination. It turns out that kid who waits until literally 10 p.m. on a Sunday night to start a massive project isn't necessarily just being lazy. They are actually trapped in a brutal 3-step cycle. Step 1 is the fear of falling short. The standard playing in their head is so impossibly high that even starting feels downright dangerous. Step 2 is avoiding the start altogether. They treat the dreaded ugly first draft as an actual threat to their self-worth rather than a totally natural necessary part of the learning process. And then, Step 3 is relief followed by intense guilt. Putting the work off brings this temporary, fleeting relief, but then a massive wave of guilt crashes over them. Breaking this specific cycle is going to be absolutely key for us. Which brings us to Section 3, the cost of outcome praise. To figure out how we even got stuck in this cycle in the first place, we need to look at a systemic habit in our culture. And let me be clear, this is one we are all working to unlearn without an ounce of parental guilt. For generations, we've been completely conditioned to praise the A+, the shiny trophy, the final polished product. But praising only the final grade can inadvertently wire a child's brain to fear failure. If they feel like they are only valued when they are perfect, the long-term costs are just immense. It creates a deep fear of new challenges. Why try something hard if I might look bad doing it? It causes severe difficulty accepting feedback, because suddenly every little critique feels like a massive personal attack. It leads to a high burnout risk and ultimately, totally lowered creativity. We end up unintentionally stifling their internal ceiling of growth simply because they become too scared to color outside the lines. So let's pivot. Section 4, the Anti-Perfectionism Protocol. How do we actually shift this narrative day to day? Well, we use an actionable toolkit of practices designed to celebrate effort over outcomes. One of my absolute favorite daily tools in this protocol is the concept of good enough. Good enough is a pre-decided, highly realistic standard for a task that allows it to be completed without endless, stressful tweaking. The absolute magic of this is setting the standard before the timer even starts. You sit down with your kid and say, okay, what does a good enough math worksheet look like tonight? By defining it early, you give your child explicit, clear permission to finish a task, put their pencil down, and walk away without agonizing over it for another hour. It is a total game changer. Another super powerful practice is transforming their internal self-talk using one simple, brilliant phrase. I haven't mastered this yet. Just adding the word yet. Shifting a child's internal dialogue from a permanent dead-end statement like I'm bad at math to the incredibly empowering concept of not yet completely transforms how they view a messy, difficult process. It signals to their brain that the book isn't closed. They are just still walking on the learning path. Okay, this is the big one. Section 5, How to Praise Process. We have arrived at the absolute core focus of our explainer today, how to praise process effectively. If you only take one single thing away from our time together, I want you to take a mental screenshot of these exact phrase swaps. We all say certain things with the very best of intentions, right? You're so smart. I'm so glad you got an A. Wow, this is perfectly neat. But those phrases secretly tell a kid that their value is entirely tied to their intelligence, their grade, and their flawlessness. So trading outcome praise for process-focused scripts is the single most effective micro-action you can take tonight. Instead of saying, "You're so smart," try saying, "I saw how hard you worked on that draft." This praises their resilience. Instead of focusing on the A they got, ask them, "What did you learn from this mistake?" This normalizes errors as just useful data, not life-ending disasters. And instead of praising how neat something is, say, "I'm so proud of your focus today." You are directly highlighting the effort that they can control rather than the result that they sometimes can't. This is exactly how we build unstoppable, resilient learners.
Finally, Section 6, When to Seek Support.
As wonderful and effective as all these tools are, we do need to be realistic about when it might be time to seek out a school counselor or a child psychologist. This protocol is highly effective for everyday struggles, but I want you to keep an eye out for observable signs of deeper distress. We're looking for things like a really strong emotional distress over a near-perfect grade, like if they are full-on crying over a 95. We are looking for a total, stubborn avoidance of any activities where success isn't 100% guaranteed. And very importantly, please watch for physical stress symptoms, like sudden stomach aches or headaches right before tests or before school. Always remember that this explainer and the workbook are fantastic supportive tools, but they are not a replacement for professional guidance if your child is deeply struggling. If this explainer has sparked your interest and you want to really deepen your understanding of these concepts, the workbook provides a phenomenal recommended reading list. These 3 specific books are the absolute gold standard. Mindset by Carol Dweck, which dives deep into the power of not yet, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown, and Grit by Angela Duckworth, which beautifully outlines exactly why perseverance matters way more than natural talent. I highly, highly recommend checking these out. And that brings us to the end of our journey today. I want to leave you with this final, provocative question to think about. What imperfect effort will you celebrate tonight? Seriously, I challenge you to look for a messy first draft, a really tough, frustrating struggle with a math problem, or just a beautifully flawed attempt, and explicitly praise the hard process that went into it. Remember, progress, not perfection, is the ultimate goal here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and happy celebrating!